couple of months ago, I demonstrated a technique called the double bind off, which could be used to join two sets of live stitches that were knit flat with a result that looks very much like grafting. In this week's Technique Tuesday video, I'll demonstrate how to do the double bind off to join stitches that were knit in the round. So you can see on the purl side of this fabric, the double bind off was done on the purl side, and it created these parallel chains of bind offs that are just nestled really flat here in the background of purl stitches. This particular situation was done in a sock heel that looks like this. And so on the right side of the work, the finished result looks very much like it was grafted. So it's flat on the inside and it looks grafted from the right side of the work. So when I demonstrated this technique, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I was demonstrating it for the purposes of this kind of situation where you would be working with one piece of fabric and that you would be folding it in half. And you could work this bind off by alternating binding off a stitch off the left hand needle and the right hand needle, just using the two needles that you have in your hand. This works fine if you are working with two separate pieces of flat fabric, or if you're working with one piece of flat fabric like this, which is essentially going to end up folded in half like that. But you can keep the two needles pointing in opposite directions like this when you're in this scenario. What I'm going to show you today is using this double bind off on a sock toe. And so this is a scenario where you're working in the round. So you won't be able to have the two pieces of fabric facing opposite each other. They have to be held in parallel. So you can still do this double bind off technique for, say, finishing off the end of a sock toe, but you will need a third needle in order to do that. So if you want to do this on the wrong side, on the purl side of the work, and you're doing it in this kind of a situation, what you need to do is turn your work inside out. Now, if you're working a sock toe and you get down to what I have right here, about 12 stitches on each needle, you should be able to fit the sock through this hole, the whole sock to come up through this hole and turn it inside out. If you're reducing down to a much narrower span of stitches in order before you want to do your toe closure, you will want to turn it inside out before you get down into something that's quite narrow, because you probably will struggle to get the entire sock up through it. So here's what you do. So this hole is plenty big, so I can turn this inside out. And in this case, if I needed to continue making the hole smaller, I could. The way it works is that you see that the purl side is facing you now, and the yarn is hanging on the last stitch that was worked. So you would be bringing the yarn back here, and you would be working across these stitches as if to knit. So you're going to be working on the far side of the round when it's turned inside out. So you can do the last few rounds of decreases by working inside out if you need to. For my demonstration, I am ready to work the bind off right away. So we're going to start off by doing a left-leaning decrease off of this first needle. So we're going to do an SSK. So slip one as if to knit, and then slip the second one as if to knit. Enter through the fronts of those two stitches with the left-hand needle. Wrap the yarn however you normally knit and pull it through. And so you've got your first stitch. Now we're just going to transfer that back to the left-hand needle. So point to point in order to transfer it back so it doesn't change its stitch mount. Now what we're going to do off the back needle is we're going to purl two together. So we go through here and we purl the stitches together. Tighten it up a bit. And now we're going to transfer it back to that back needle. Now we're going to come back to the front We're just going to slip this as if to purl because this is the stitch that was completed last time. We're just going to move it back to the right hand needle. But now we can slip as if to knit and then work these two together as an SSK. And then transfer it back, tighten it up. Now on the backhand needle, we're going to purl these two together. And then we're going to transfer it back. So we're just going to keep doing that over and over again. So you're going to slip this one as if to purl because you're maintaining the stitch mount. This one doesn't need to change. You need to change the stitch mount of the second one so that you slip as if to knit, so that when you work it, the result does not twist underneath the needle. Return this back to the front left hand needle. And now back here, we are going to purl these two together. And then we're going to return it. Now you have another option for this front hand needle. You can slip as if to purl. Then you can knit this stitch and bind it off like a regular bind off if that's what you prefer, and then return it to the left hand needle. And likewise, if you wanted to, you could just slip this one off of that back needle, purl this stitch, and then bind it off. So you have choices for each needle. Those are going to give you the same results. I think it's easier to purl two together off the back loop. You might find, we got to return that. Either way that you would like, whether slip as if to purl, slip as if to knit, work the two together through the front, and then return it. Either way works, and always just tighten it up a little bit after you complete the stitch. So you're just going to keep alternating back and forth between the two needles, and that's what is producing the parallel bind-off chains. Now I'm holding the yarn in my left hand. That's just how I'm more comfortable. You can obviously do these with the yarn in your right hand if that's how you handle the yarn. Bring it around, purl them together. And return it. Slip the first as if to purl, slip the second as if to knit, bring through the front, wrap it as if to knit, pull it through, and return it to the left-handed needle. So why would you choose to do this? Well, you may not like grafting. And so you might just like trying something new. But a lot of people really don't like grafting. They'll do anything to avoid it. And so this is an option. It creates a result that looks like grafting on the right-hand side. And because it's so flat on the inside, it will probably be comfortable for most people. If you're have very sensitive feet, it may or may not work well for you. And the only way to know would be for you to try it and see what you think. If you don't like it, because this is a bind off, you can just rip it out, recapture the stitches, and then close the toe in another way. So I've got my last two stitches. I'm just going to work them together like a regular old knit two together. Like that. And then I can cut the yarn and pull the loop out. But here is the result on this side of the fabric. And then on this side of the fabric, it looks very much like it was grafted. So it is very flat. There is more, slightly more density of the fabric right here. But I would say most people are going to find this comfortable. The people who are extremely sensitive may find this uncomfortable, but it isn't really bulky like a seam would be bulky. It's not. It's because the two chains are side by side, it's flatter than a standard like 3 needle bind off. So it is an option that is fun to try and gives you a result that looks just like a graft. If you're interested in trying out the double bind off for flat fabric using the 2 needle method I mentioned at the start of the video, you can find that video over here. I'll also put a link down in the video description to the free sock pattern that uses this technique in the sock heel. If you're interested in a true graft that's a lot simpler than the so-called Kitchener stitch method of grafting, you might be interested in the Finchley graft over here. If you have any comments or questions about today's video or suggestions for videos you'd like to see in the future, you can leave those down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.